Welcome to the Freaking Out podcast. My name is Hugo Aranzaes, and I write a column about the psychology of games in the Punk Effect. With me tonight is my fellow Punk Effect contributor, John Bennet, who writes the column Digital Retro.
Hello.
Hello, John. He's a big fan of games, and he's sort of an expert, a reporter on new releases of old retro games on modern consoles. And tonight we're going to start talking about the Nintendo live event. John, please.
Yes, yeah, lot to cover in the Nintendo Direct they showed this week. It was kind of a big one for them, where they sort of laid out a lot of the plans that they have between now and E3. So let's see, where do we start? Well, they did announce the new Fire Emblem that's coming out for the 3DS. They don't have an official title for it in America yet, but in Japan it's being called Fire Emblem If, which I think is supposed to indicate that the game relies a lot on choices that you can make. And the trailer showed for it looked like it had some samurai characters in it, samurai influence, which is a little different from the kind of the medieval European style the series usually has.
Tell us a little about the original game, which I'm not familiar with. Is it a strategy game, a turn-based RPG?
Yeah, it's a strategy RPG, turn-based, in which you have kind of your own units, and you move them across this grid full of squares, and it's kind of like chess, and you have the player turn and the enemy's turn, and you take turns moving all of your units at once, and then they engage in battle, and you usually win a round by defeating the leader or seizing their castle. But what makes Fire Emblem unique compared to other strategy games is that all of your units are individual characters. They all have their own names and their own backstories, and they're all unique. And because of that, you can't just manufacture new units from like a factory or something like you can in a lot of other strategy games, but rather those characters, when they die, it's permanent. So you really, the feeling of losing a unit in battle really kind of affects you a lot, and hardcore Fire Emblem players are usually kind of OCD when it comes to keeping all their units alive, if they lose one, they will reset and replay an entire match, even if they're like losing 2 hours of game time, just in order to keep that unit alive. So Fire Emblem can be kind of unforgiving.
That reminds me a lot of a totally different game, but still turn-based and tile-based strategy game, which was XCOM.
Yes.
I played a lot of that game, and I tolerated everything but losing a good soldier. And I used to spend a lot of time replaying the same battle just to make sure a specific character will survive. So I get the idea.
Yeah, and Fire Emblem, I think, has some really great character designs in it, and you get kind of attached to your characters, the normal characters that you use. So yeah, death really kind of means something and really impacts you when you lose a character in that game.
That's the point. The point of maybe the biggest selling point of RPGs and JRPGs is the character involvement. How emotionally attached do you feel with the characters? Either it's the same with the best TV shows or movies out there. You might feel really bad because someone died, but you still love the fact that the media, the game, or the show have this impact on yourself.
Right. Yeah. And in a lot of games, though, it's like if you can still revive them, unless their death is part of like the script and they have to die because it's the story. But in Fire Emblem, they can die at any time. Usually it's not because of the story, but if they just die regularly, they are out of the game. If it's one of the main characters that is important to the story, and that usually just ends the game right there, and you can't go any farther. You have to replay. But that usually only happens with sort of like your commanding characters, the main character. And all of your units, your more minor characters, can usually like disappear. Sometimes they're written out as just being injured, but you can't use them anymore in battle. So that's what makes Fire Emblem interesting.
That's a great
What kind
tackling.
of yeah? So they announced a new Fire Emblem, but what kind of stood out to me in the Nintendo Direct was almost sort of the things they didn't mention. For example, there's another Fire Emblem game that Nintendo's been working on for a couple of years now, which is a crossover game called Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem, which is obviously a crossover with the Shin Megami Tensei series. And they announced that back in 2014, and I believe it's a proper RPG. It's not a strategy game like the main Fire Emblem games, and I think it's being developed by Atlas. But they have said next to nothing about it since then. They were asked last year, I believe at last year's E3, if that game was still in development. They said it was still in development and on schedule, but they didn't have anything else to say about it. So yeah, every time they have a direct, there's like certain games I keep waiting for them to mention, and they didn't say anything about it.
It can be a bit frustrating.
Yeah. So it's like you almost kind of start to feel nervous, like, did they just quietly cancel it and not tell anyone? But
But the point with games releases is that you can expect great results from when they mention they are going to release a game that belongs to the main franchise. For example, Fire Emblem and a sequel to Fire Emblem, or which you are a fan of Street Fighter and you see a game that's going to be Street Fighter 4, then Street Fighter 5, you can expect that a lot of resources are going to be invested to make this a good game, and it's going to be a similar product, the product you are used to play. But when you see, for example, a game that is a crossover, let's mention something totally different, which is Street Fighter X Tekken. If you're a fan of Tekken and you play this game, you're not going to like it. And it's sometimes when we see these crossovers, some gameplay aspects are lost. And if we are going to see a Fire Emblem game where the turn-based strategy battle system is not used, then the essence, everything that made this game attractive, is lost. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of good expectation when someone mentions a crossover game, at least until I see more information.
right. Well, and the fact that it is being developed by Atlas and not Intelligent Systems, who usually makes the Fire Emblem games, would kind of lead me to believe that it is going to be more like the RPGs that Atlas makes, like the Persona series and Shin Megami Tensei series, which are more proper RPGs.
Well, sometimes when the people make these projects, they are trying to, I don't know if this is the right word, to capitalize or profit from how much support the franchise has, and they try to sell a different game just based on the name. And this is when you let games be developed by another company and end up not being that satisfying for anyone. But anyway, if you want to explore further the world of Fire Emblem, you're going to have another title to have fun.
Right. And that's the thing, is that the crossover game is supposed to be coming out for the Wii U, and the new Fire Emblem game is coming out for the 3DS. So I actually expected that the next Fire Emblem game, the next main Fire Emblem game, might be a Wii U game, because the last Fire Emblem game was on the 3DS. But I guess it kind of makes sense, since the last Fire Emblem game was like the most successful game ever in that series. that they would keep it on the same platform so that the audience would still be there.
Yeah, there's here's the thing, that the style of game that Fire Emblem seems to be fits all right away with the gameplay, with the system of 3DS. So it makes sense that if it's successful, they're going to keep it there in order to people to keep buying 3DS, especially now that we have a new 3DS coming.
Right.
So my guess is we're going to see Wii U games staying in the console and 3DS games staying in the 3DS. So, any other thing that caught your attention in this event?
Well, there was the announcement of a Super Mario Brothers edition of Puzzle and Dragons, which is a really popular mobile game in Japan. It's sort of a match-3 puzzle game like Bejeweled or Candy Crush, except now it's going to have Mario characters in it. But the interesting thing about it is that it's not a mobile game. It's being made for the 3DS. So it's almost like Nintendo is acknowledging, the mobile games market, but rather than moving their games over to mobile, they're taking mobile gaming it over to their own platform. So that's kind of an interesting strategy, but probably not what people meant when they said Nintendo needed to get into mobile.
Yeah, the thing is, do you think fans of the Nintendo consoles and games would like to see Nintendo selling games for smartphones? Because my first impression is that I don't imagine Nintendo the same quality of games Nintendo creates when trying to be adapted to the smartphone environment.
Right, yeah. Nintendo emphasizes their own hardware a lot. They as a hardware manufacturer, they do a really good job of taking full advantage of their own systems. So I think something would probably get lost if they tried developing for other platforms. And yeah, I think
it's a better approach to see what a successful game is in a mobile environment and see what the 3DS can do to improve the experience.
Yeah, well, I think there's probably similar pitfalls to taking a game that was designed to be played on a phone or a tablet and moving it over to a dedicated gaming device, because I think players kind of expect a slightly different experience. If you're playing a game on a console or a gaming handheld, you're probably expecting something with a certain amount of depth or a certain type of gameplay to it. And games that are designed for mobile, and I don't play mobile games, but they seem to emphasize more being very simple kind of games. And yeah, I know there's like Call of Duty and stuff that's on everything, but when you have like a match through, that's something you can pull your phone out and start it up and play it for a few minutes and then put it back in your pocket. And I'm not sure if people are necessarily looking for that kind of experience on the 3DS. So if they're kind of trying to maybe expand that, by not just adding a Super Mario Brothers characters to it, but trying to flesh out the game, maybe that would work.
It makes sense in a way. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it makes sense in a way that they want to say to people, you know what, 3DS is a mobile gaming device, but not all of our games are going to be that demanding. We want to let you know that sometimes you can just sit down, relax, and play with lining up 3 images of Mario Brothers, of Mario or Yoshi or whatever, and just spend your time without thinking too much. Maybe that's what they want. They want to tell mobile users you don't have to be scared about this console, and maybe to tell 3DS fans or users, you know what, you don't have to leave the console to play your casual games. You can gradually, you're going to be having more and more access to this type of titles.
Right, and you know, Nintendo's handheld systems do kind of have sort of a broad audience, I think. I mean, especially if you go back and look at the original DS, which was sort of the beginning of Nintendo trying to reach out to the more casual market. And this was before gaming on mobile devices really exploded. But that system, the original DS, started off with like a lot of very simple games on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, games that you could just pick up and play, and anyone could understand them. And
mini
they
games,
had that sort of a lot of mini games on there, and I think that even back then that rubbed you know, hardcore gamers the wrong way. They wanted like fuller experience, and it took about 6 months for those kinds of games to really start showing up on the DS. But there were certainly plenty of them after that. But Nintendo kept kind of catering to both markets with stuff like Brain Age and Nintendogs and games like that were really easy for people who weren't necessarily hardcore gamers to get into. But now that we do have mobile, is it really still relevant for them to cater to that audience to the point of taking actual mobile games and bringing it over to the 3DS, especially when you consider the price difference between a mobile game and a game you would actually buy for like the 3DS or a handheld gaming device? Because I'm not sure how much Puzzle and Dragons actually costs, but you know, maybe it's only a few dollars. But if you're going to buy the game on the 3DS, I'm assuming that this version is a downloadable title. It could probably still be only a few bucks, but usually if it's going to be a physical game, you know it's going to be at least $20.
The average 3DS game, how much can it cost?
I believe 3DS games can get as much as $40.
So, because the only problem I can think about is that a mobile user seeing casual games appearing on the 3DS and buying one and expecting to find $5 games and ended up frustrated because he can't buy as many games as he's used to. Anyway.
Right, but yeah, they do have the eShop, so you can still buy downloadable games on them, and I assume actually Nintendo has kind of dabbled in the free-to-play market a little bit, and they actually have another game they announced that is a free-to-play, and that is Pokemon Shuffle, which is another kind of a match-3 puzzle game, I think. And that's free-to-play. You can just download that for free, and then you purchase add-ons for it. So
Fremium.
Right, yeah. Nintendo, I think they've only done this once before, and that was a game called Steel Diver Subwars, which is also on the 3DS, and you can download that for free. And that's interesting because they actually supported that pretty well with just the core base without actually forcing people to buy stuff. They actually made the core downloadable experience pretty well fleshed out. So it's interesting to see Nintendo kind of getting into that market, but keeping it on their own platform.
Now, Pokemon Shuffle seems, I view a couple of images of the game, seems like a simplified Pokemon battle and build-up game. Now, I'm not familiar with the Pokemon games, but can you tell us a little more about this format? Not the Pokemon games, this one, the Pokemon Shuffle.
I don't actually know a lot about Pokemon Shuffle. All I kind of noticed was that it was a puzzle game, another match 3 game, and I assume kind of reaching out to the same audience that would be interested in the Puzzle and Dragons game. So I'm not really sure how the particulars of Pokemon Shuffle are going to work.
Mm.
I don't remember everything they said in the direct.
So any other news about releases or something that you thought would be interesting?
Well, they announced that they're actually adding some original Wii games to the Wii U eShop, so you can buy them and download them digitally, and they will run directly from the Wii U menu without having to go into the original Wii mode. And it's kind of interesting to see Wii games on the eShop, because I kind of expected that they might do GameCube games first, since the Wii U is already backwards compatible with the Wii. You can take Wii disc games and put them in the system and play them.
But it's backwards compatible?
It is backwards compatible. The Wii was backwards compatible to the GameCube, but the Wii U is only backwards compatible to just the Wii. So that leads a lot of people to think that, oh, they're going to support GameCube games in the eShop in the future, but instead they're putting Wii games on there, which is kind of weird in a way. It's cool. Well, it's not unnecessary, because it's an opportunity to get games that you may have missed the first time around.
Yeah.
The one that they've got out there now is Super Mario Galaxy 2, which is not a rare game. It's, most people either have it or it would be really easy to find. But the next game coming out is, I believe, Punch-Out, which is a little less common, and buying a brand new copy of that is actually really expensive. At least going by Amazon prices, which it's like $70.
What?
So it's like $70. It's like some Wii games, their value just seems to be kind of high. I don't know. Maybe if you actually went into a GameStop and found a used copy of it, it might be a lot cheaper. But the price of Mario Galaxy 2 is $20, but for the first week it's been discounted down to $9.99, which is a pretty good price.
It's a great game.
Right, and I assume Punch-Out's probably going to be about the same price, so $10 for that is still a really good deal. What blows my mind is that the game that's coming after that is the Metroid Prime trilogy, which is all 3 Metroid Prime games, the 2 from the GameCube that were upgraded to run on the Wii, and then the third one was made specifically for the Wii. And an actual physical copy of that was, GameStop was trying to sell those for about $80 used last year. So, and that was not a real common game. I think it had kind of a low print run. So if
it makes them more accessible.
Right. If it goes for the same price that they're selling the other Wii games for, $20, even if it is $20, if they don't discount it to $10, that's still way better than what you could probably find it for in the wild. And that's three whole games too. That's a great deal. So
for me, I mean, I don't have a Wii U, but if I were going to buy one in the next month, that will be great news for me, because I had the opportunity to play, for example, games like Mario Galaxy 2 and Donkey Kong Country Returns, and for a couple of minutes, and I really enjoyed it. So if I realized I was also going to have access to cheaper versions of these games, it will be a great way to expand your library.
Right, and what's even more interesting though is that in Japan they're getting even more Wii games, and they're actually even more obscure. They're coming out with Sin and Punishment, which is a fantastic Wii game. That's my personal favorite Wii game, and Pandora's Tower, which did get released in North America a couple of years ago, and I don't know if it sold well, but it's a little obscure. And the fact that those two games are among the first that are coming out in Japan is really interesting, because they're not just pushing Zelda, and they're not just pushing all of their Mario games out right away and then saving the obscure stuff for later, but they're actually putting the lesser known, the more rarer titles out in front, which I think is fantastic, because it gives them a second chance to get discovered. And I would hope that Nintendo of America and even Nintendo of Europe would kind of follow suit with that, and also bring out some of those games, because I think a lot of people probably do have Mario, they probably do have Zelda, but they may have missed the more obscure games, and this would be a second chance for them to get them without having to pay insane prices, in the used market. Not that all of them are really expensive, because if they didn't sell well to begin with and there's not demand for them, their price doesn't go up.
Yeah, but it's a great move from Nintendo.
Right. It also opens up the door for maybe the possibility of importing games, bringing over games that never originally came out in America or Europe. Actually, there were games that did come out in Europe that never came out in North America. Like there was like Disaster Day of Crisis. There was the Wii remake of Fatal Frame 2. There was an adventure game called Another Code R, which was the sequel to Trace Memory that did come out in North America. So there were games in Europe and they're in English, so they could perhaps bring those over and give them a chance in North America, which would be awesome.
Now the point is, I have a question. In the PlayStation 3 system, sometimes there were a slight difference in respect to the titles available in Latin America, in Europe, and the United States and Japan. And sometimes you could access a couple of different demos or games by logging into an account from a different country, by creating an account and saying you were from Spain or whatever. Does the Nintendo Wii U allows people to do something like that?
No, it does not. The Wii U and the 3DS are both region locked, and they are the last consoles actually to continue to be region locked. Both the PS4 and the Xbox One, and I believe the Xbox 360 and PS3 are region free, or at the very least left whether or not a game is region locked up to the publisher. But you can't make an account or you can't buy something from another region on a Wii U from a different region. Like you can't log into a Wii U from North America and buy something on the Japanese eShop. And games, even disc games, won't work. So, yeah, that's something that rubs a lot of fans the wrong way.
Yeah, so your hands are tied as a consumer.
Yeah, pretty much. Especially since actually the original DS and every Nintendo handheld before that was region free. Region locking the 3DS is something new. So.
Well, there are a couple of problems with maybe some Nintendo games in Japan that could have maybe some problems were released in the United States. I remember an old story about Dragon Quest, which had to change its name when released in the United States because it was too similar to another franchise. I forgot the name. So anyway, any other news before we switch to another subject?
Actually, I got two things I could mention. One is Nintendo announced a new Amiibo coming out, and they're doing a new Super Mario series of Amiibo that are going to be different from the Mario Amiibo they've already released, which were based on Smash Brothers. But they're coming out with a new Mario and a new Luigi and other new characters from Super Mario, but they will function the same. So only the little statue part is going to be different, and that, I guess, kind of emphasizes sort of the collectible aspect of Amiibo, which is probably the most prominent part of Amiibo, because their functionality in the game is not, like, at
It's
least to
not
me, it's not real
innovative.
exciting. Yeah, it's cute. It does some maybe fun things, but it's nothing essential. And
Yeah,
maybe
you
that's
could do
for
that
the
with the
better
internet or
because,
something.
right,
You could, I
it's
mean, you
probably
could create an account online and save your character attributes and levels in this file and access it from everywhere. So the fact that they put this functionality make it dependable of a little plastic figure doesn't make a lot of sense, but it blows my mind how successful this has turned to be.
right. Yeah, because it's it's kind of unique to me because Nintendo is usually not the kind of company that just imitates whatever the popular trend is. They kind of sort of have their own little world that they function in. So to see them kind of look at Skylanders and Disney Infinity and say, we need to do our own version of this, that's kind of odd, I think, for Nintendo. But the fact that it actually is successful, especially since you've already got two other, really successful versions of that model out there, uh, it's surprising to me.
Yeah, but the thing is, when I heard the first time about the Amiibo and it was announced, I could remember another similar system used by another console or company. I think the PlayStation had some sort of, or PlayStation 3 had some sort of figures based game. I can't remember. But in a way, I give credit for Nintendo for making it their own, giving it a specific name, a specific aesthetic, functionality, and making their own, and it seems like something very relatable to Nintendo. And the thing is, these Amiibo figures are a good way to make money. Um, at least in the other consoles, people were complaining about how all these figures, like, once you have one or two, that how much does an Amiibo cost?
They're $12.99.
Okay, that's not a low price. I was expecting $5 or something. Okay, $12 or $13. So you have that, and then you want the princess, and you want Donkey Kong, and then you heard these 5 more figures have released, and all of a sudden you have spent like $60, which is like buying a whole new game. So it seems profitable. And now we think about Pokemon Shuffle, which is a Fremium game, another very successful business model. Maybe not that ethical, but successful. So from that point, from the point of profit, it makes sense for Nintendo, and it has been successful so far. And
Right.
it's not like something as radical as actually releasing games in mobile phones, but it makes sense as something Nintendo will do, and it makes them money, which was the problem. Let's face it.
Right. Yeah. It's it's interesting though that the way they're kind of handling it seems to be a little bit conservative, because it's people are buying them, and I think it's less because of their functionality with the game and more just because they're sort of this neat little collectible and they can put them on the
They are
shelf.
really, really cute.
Right. Yeah. They're neat, but they seem to be a little bit cheap. Because I've heard of, I mean, if you look at how many defective ones are being sold on eBay for thousands of dollars, and I've even heard of people, they go to the store and they see them on the shelf, and even inside the package they're kind of a little messed up. which is a little weird. But Nintendo seems to be kind of miscommunicating whether or not certain amiibo are, going to become rare and which ones are going to stay common. Like everyone knows that the Mario amiibo and the Link amiibo they're going to be out there, but everyone's trying to find the Marth amiibo from Fire Emblem, and they're having a hard time finding that. So that kind of drives up the demand on it, and frustrates people who want to collect for it. The interesting thing is that during the direct, they mentioned that they are bringing out more Marth amiibo later this year. So they are kind of acknowledging that it was kind of hard for people to find, and they're bringing more of them out. And I've heard, some people think that Nintendo is deliberately kind of choking the supply a little bit in order to raise the demand. I don't really buy into that, because that doesn't really benefit them at all. It benefits people who are selling them on the secondhand market on eBay. They're making thousands of dollars off of it, but Nintendo's not making anything off of it, and they're only going to care about the money that they can make. And if people are trying to buy a product that they're unable to stock, then that's money that they're losing.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that it seems to be kind of happening a lot. There's reports from retailers saying, well, this amiibo has been discontinued and we have to cancel pre-orders on it. We're not going to get any more. And then people are going to Nintendo and getting, well, what's the official word on this? And Nintendo's been kind of vague on it. It's like, well, some amiibo will be discontinued if they're not very popular, and other amiibo will be manufactured more. And it kind of sends mixed messages. I think it's sort of like, it's like Nintendo's mismanaging it just a little bit, and I think it's because they were being very conservative about it. Like, they didn't know how successful it was going to be, so they lowballed how much they were going to manufacture and how much they were going to distribute it, just in case it flopped, and that would minimize how much money they would lose. But on the other hand, it's taken off as they would have wanted it to, and now they're having trouble kind of keeping it available for everyone who wants it.
I think in the long term, Nintendo has the capacity to keep up with the demand of most of these particular figures, but I don't think they can handle it in a weekly basis. I mean, they can't listen what people are complaining about on Monday, and they can't keep up with the demand that a week from today. I mean, people have to wait either way. And as much as Nintendo would like to sell each figure, at least some of them are going to be discontinued. So I think it's about, like you said, like Nintendo wasn't prepared, either though they have the logistics necessary because they sell a lot of merchandising, So I think they have the capacity to create and make tons of these figures, but they can't constantly change the portion of the figures released based on what people say week after week they like better or they are missing. I think that that's the biggest problem are those people actually reselling these little toys and by huge prices, and that's making a lot of consumers mad.
Right. Yeah. It's really kind of affecting the secondhand market a lot. I mean, I do kind of like when I see people, they take Amiibo and they do their own custom modding on it, like they'll paint it in or affect it into a different character. That looks really cool. And if those end up on eBay, that's probably fair because they at least put their own work into it. I think it's kind of silly to take a defective model and try to sell it for thousands of dollars, especially since there seem to be so many defective ones out there. But
I don't know.
I kind of wonder though if this is something Nintendo's going to follow through on. Are they gonna is Amiibo still going to be a thing that they're doing a year from now? Are they
It's a
still
great
going to be
question.
making games that support it, or there's still going to be new Amiibo? Because sometimes Nintendo has the tendency to start something and then not really follow through on it, and maybe that's just because it doesn't turn out as successful as they thought. So Amiibo might have legs, but it's like with putting Wii games on the Wii U as downloadable software, and they've there's three, there's one out now, there's a couple more coming, and they've got a bunch of them in Japan, and they say there's more on the way.
But you are
But
not
yeah,
sure.
how long are they going to follow through with that? Are I continue to see Wii games? Is there going to be a sizable library, or are they just going to do it for like a couple of months and then forget about it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, during this year at least, and it was going to be a success, and then probably next year it's going to go. People eventually are going to get tired of it, and then maybe with some major release or a new console, it's going to make a comeback, and maybe that's going to be its life cycle. So, any other news? One final news about Nintendo.
Let's see. I guess the other kind of substantial thing was there was an announcement for a game called Project Treasure. That's not the final name, but that's the working name. There's very little information that they actually revealed about it, but they kind of gave it its own little segment in the direct video, which kind of suggests that it's going to be something big when it comes along. It's being made by Bandai Namco and produced by Katsuhiro Harada, who's the producer of the Tekken series. And it sounds like it's going to be a free-to-play game, because they said it would be free to download and play it. They didn't mention anything about DLC. I just kind of assume that's coming. And all we know about it is it's going to be a 4-player co-op game. It sounds like it's going to be a dungeon crawler because they emphasized fighting enemies and finding treasure. And that's pretty much all we know about it. It's kind of weird that they would make an announcement for a game that they
Without
couldn't
little
really talk
information.
about. Yeah, all they did was they maybe flashed some vague images on the screen, and they had Harada talking about it and giving these just the most vague description. Oh, here's a game that you can play. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, I can't wait
It's
for
going
it.
to.
Right. The only rumor about it is based on one of the images that was shown, as some people think that one of the characters in it might be Cosmos, who is a character from the Xenosaga series that Bandai Namco published. It's actually developed by Monolith Soft, who is now owned by Nintendo, and they make the Xenoblade games. So it would be kind of interesting if they went back and were able to get that character to put in one of their new games, because they're working with the company that owns the rights to it now.
Yeah, have you thought about it maybe turning into what in a massive multiplayer game like League of Legends or something like that, a party RPG game?
It doesn't sound like it's going to be a massively multiplayer game, but yeah, it's going to be. I believe it's online, and but
They mentioned
it sounds like it's just going to be the kind of game where you team up with like 3 other people, and
yes,
that you go out and you play through a level in the game, and that's it. More like I think Phantasy Star Online was like that.
yeah. I have no idea how to report that. I mean, it doesn't. You can't say anything about it. Why make it
Right.
a big deal? I mean, I have a game. It's going to exist for four people, online multiplayer about dungeon and treasure, and that could fit anything. They didn't mention the console.
It's coming to Wii U.
That makes so it's going to be a bigger game.
It sounds like it.
The Hero Warriors is going to go to the Wii U. It's going to be released on the Wii U. Hero Warriors.
Oh, Hyrule Warriors?
Yes.
Yeah, that's on the Wii U, yes.
Maybe something similar to that. Anyway, so they mention also a cross-buy title, which is a game that can be bought on either Wii U and Nintendo 3DS, a new 3DS hardware that apparently improves a lot the 3D aspect of games. And that's pretty much it. But there's another little news that we have been able to hear about recently. I read it on IGN. I don't know if you read it. And it's about the CEOs of Fox are in talks with Chris Carter, which is the creator of the original X-Files TV series. They're in talks to make another X-Files show. Now, they haven't specified if it's going to be a main series event or a 24, 26 episode show, but they did mention that they are interested in both Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny. Now, I remember watching the game back in the 90s, but I wasn't like the biggest fan. How about you, John?
I watched it pretty regularly, and I was into it back then. I haven't really watched it since then. I haven't gone back to see reruns or anything. But yeah, I know that I was kind of into it a little bit. I saw the first movie. I did not see the second movie.
But you like the first movie, but not the second one?
The first movie was basically a longer budget version TV series, and so I haven't seen the second one. The second one I've heard is more self-contained.
I used to see the TV show. I didn't like it that much because it at one point it became a big bluff. It didn't really deliver like solutions to big problems in the show. That big questions weren't answered. And then I watched the movie in theaters, and it was another big bluff. I mean, it showed a little bit of things of what could happen. Now you experience this huge UFO and alien invasion as a reality, but at least there are more questions than answers. And then I saw the second movie, which was more in the style of Monster of the Week. Just a serial killer that has to be found by these two FBI agents. And it was more effective but it was also less ambitious. But it was fun. It was a fun thriller, which is not what people usually associate X-Files with. Well, maybe it's in the original series it is a political thriller and there's a lot of intrigue, but the movie was kind of fun. Now, having said that, given the stakes of TV shows right now, the level of special effects, the quality of the writers, the quality of the performances, the original show maybe hasn't aged that well. What could we expect of another X-Files show? Let's place Mulder and Scully on the show. What could we expect from a modern X-Files TV show, taking into account the state of TV right now?
Well, that's a good question. I don't watch a lot of TV right now. I do think the X-Files is a very 90s TV show. And it was very well made. It was well written and well acted. It was like watching sort of a mini movie every week. I think it did do a pretty good job building up suspense. You are right that it spends more time asking questions than answering them, which is Gilligan's Island syndrome. You know, it's kind of a treadmill, it just kind of keeps you dangling every week to make you tune in next week, but it doesn't really solve anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder if the emphasis on sort of conspiracy theories and covers would still be really popular today.
You know what? I lost your audio for a moment. Yeah, I have problems hearing you. So I want to talk about a little bit about on my side. Let's talk about the actors. I mean, Gillian Anderson went on to a career in acting, and she hasn't appeared in big blockbusters on TV shows, but she's fairly successful. David Duchovny went on doing Californication and a couple of movies and has done pretty well. And I don't think either of them is pretty eager to go back to the X-Files. Maybe if they make a TV movie or a miniseries, a 10-episode miniseries, 13-episode miniseries, with really good writers, and they make a self-contained story inside these miniseries, I think they have a higher chance to see them coming back. But not to a traditional 34-episode TV show where that demands so much time. What do you think?
I think if they wanted to get Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny back, maybe the way we would go is maybe have them sort of more in just making occasional appearances. Maybe they'd be like mentoring like younger agents who would be like the new star of the show.
John?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I have problems.
My internet has been a little bit flaky this weekend, so I'm dropping out. Aside, you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you.
All right. Aside from Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny, in the last couple of seasons of the original series, they got Rob Patrick, he was kind of the replacement for David Duchovny when he was. I actually really liked his character, and I wish they had had more time to kind of develop and go somewhere with him. So I would actually really like it if they did a new X-Files, they could get Robert Patrick back to play that character and explore that a little bit.
Now, I remember that the last episode of this show, they switched the actors, but I didn't. I mean, it became a little bit hard to follow what was going on. I mean, because I have stopped seeing for a couple of weeks. Then I tried to watch it again, and they have these characters, and I don't know what Mulder was, and some people said he was dead. Scully appeared sometimes, and I was totally confused, and I didn't have the patience to go through it again. But I mean, I'll tell you right now, if they release a 10-episode TV show with both the original cast and they make it like an event, I will totally watch it, because the quality, what a shorter TV series, a mini series, allows you to do in terms of quality, it's quite attractive right now. And I would like to see how they take all this universe of the X-Files and all the potential and all the questions left, and how they can, what they can do. I think it could be great. But right now it's just talks and CEOs deciding, and I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they're going to make like Heroes and make a new series with other characters. John?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I have no problem hearing you.
Yeah, I got kicked out. I got lost the connection.
Yeah, for some
Sorry
reason I
about
have
that.
two Johns now.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's because I refreshed the page. It logged me back in. I wonder if I can
yeah,
log
it's
one out
working.
here.
It sounds better.
Um,
Whatever. If it happens again, just do this.
let's see if I can hang up here.
Now, okay, say something so we know. John, we lost you again. There you are.
Oh, that didn't work.
Yeah, don't do that.
All right.
Stay with us, please.
All right. I'll stop messing with it.
Yeah,
Just make
okay.
it worse.
So the X-Files. What would you prefer? Would you like to hear about a 12-episode miniseries with the original cast, or would you like to see a 26-episode show, like always, with no ending whatsoever, for 3 or 4 seasons?
Um, I think for me, the original show was on for about 10 years. So if they were going to bring it back, I'd kind of like to see them do something really fresh and new with it, and not just bring back the original cast and do the same thing that they were doing before. But I'd like them to really, uh, they could keep ties with it. They could still have Mulder and Scully, but like I said, they should maybe have like some new characters and new situations, and just really go in a new direction with it.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. I'm excited to see. I will give it a chance at least. I mean, the thing is, what about the new audience, the new fans? Maybe I don't know what are they going to do to attract the new audience. Now, there's another show that is going to be brought back to life, and I have watched TV through all my life, but there are a couple of shows I have been a huge fan. One was in the 80s, the original V miniseries. I saw it when I was a little kid, and I was just the biggest fan. It was like never I have seen before. It was terrifying. It was fun. It has action, and people died and never came back, and it was amazing for me. The other show was years before, uh, fairly recently, NBC's Heroes, and I can't address how big of a fan of that show I was. Either though some people has criticized it a lot because it reduced its quality a lot in the following seasons. It started great. It told the story of what people, normal people, everyday people, will do if they all of a sudden acquire superpowers, and it dealt with the idea of how these superpowers affected their everyday lives, and the idea of fighting or using them for a bigger mission or objective. And instead of showing them, we are in capes and fighting supervillains. Now, when the writers' strike hit by the end of the first season, it greatly affected the second season, which was shorter, and the writing of the next seasons 3 and 4, and the quality really deteriorated, and the fans stopped watching because the show just didn't know where to go. Now, the show ended with sort of a cliffhanger. Not all problems were solved, not all questions were answered, but it gave the fans that were still watching the feeling of not being told a complete story. Now, NBC has announced that they are going to release another a sequel to Heroes this year, 2015. Jack Coleman is coming back as his name was, I think, Noah Bennet, which was a member of an organization that tracked superheroes and sometimes captured them. And another, the original cast is not coming back besides him, which is kind of a huge disappointment, but very understandable because um, Hayden Panettiere, who was a big part of the original series, is now in another TV show. The guys that made played Peter Petrelli and Nathan Petrelli were they, they don't seem to be fond about returning to the universe. And Zachary Quinto is now a successful movie star. And no actor wants to return to their original breakthrough character sometimes. And they have announced that, what's the name of the actor? Zachary Levi, who was the lead from the TV series Chuck, is going to be a part of her project. Now, what do you think, John? Were you familiar with the original series?
I actually never watched it, unless I may have seen like one episode. So, but I know it was really popular, and I've heard a lot of fans of it say exactly what you said. They loved the first season and then they hated the second season. So maybe it's just one of those instances where, well, I guess it was partially the writers' strike, but I've seen other shows that do great in their first season, and then the network decides to get involved and meddle with it a little more, and then it takes a nosedive in the second.
Here's the thing. Heroes was a show made by Tim Kring, and Tim Kring really liked the idea of making ordinary people, placing ordinary people in superhuman or environment, and then making a big statement about how they have a huge destiny ahead of them. I think that he's also behind a show called with Kiefer Sutherland called Numbers. I don't know. It was about a little girl with superpowers or something like that, and or no, it was about a kid which was autistic and apparently couldn't communicate, but had all these apparently powers of foresight or anything. So he likes the idea of placing people and giving them huge, big futures and destinies, and make them struggle with that. I don't think that's why Heroes was successful. Heroes' success for me was based on two things. First, the idea of making everyday people have superpowers and not pushing them too quickly into the persona of the superhero. Just seeing, for example, Peter Petrelli not using his power, which was really fun. He had the power to acquire other powers and fly and shoot things and teleport and control time, and he just didn't like using his power. Nathan Petrelli, which was a politician who all of a sudden realized he could fly, he spent a lot of effort trying to avoid people realizing this. Or the cheerleader that couldn't die and seeing himself trying different forms of death in front of a video camera. I mean, it went to very funny, peculiar, and fun places. The other thing that was pretty good about the show and made a lot of people tune in was the characters. And the characters were pretty close to the actors behind them. I watched the show because of the dynamic between Peter Petrelli and Nathan Petrelli, the two leads, the amazing performance of Zachary Quinto as Sylar, which even when the scripts were really stupid, delivered a great performance. All the characters, all the actors, it's like the producer struck gold with these guys. And I don't think they are going to be, it's going to be that easy to replicate that. It's not about just bringing the original creator and giving him money and hiring an actor who was can do successful in another show, and the fans are going to watch it. If it doesn't replicate the feeling of the first season, I don't think it's going to stay. And at least it's a totally different project.
It almost sounds like a TV series that's based entirely on the first half of a lot of superhero movies where they're telling the origin story of the character, and that character is just emerging as a hero and discovering his powers and figuring out sort of his place, because I don't know, is that what the series is about? It's
The series
sort
was
of
about
discovery.
that. It's not about discovery. Like the people realized very fast what they were capable of doing, but they weren't convinced about doing it. I mean, if a kid realizes he can fly, he will be the happiest kid in the world. But if you're a politician running for Senate in the United States, you don't want to see people, you don't want anyone associating funny stuff or strange stuff with you. If you are a cheerleader, a teenager, and you have the power to regenerate, and realize, you know what, I'm a freak, I don't want to see people see me like that, you are be more prone to hide it. So in that sense, the show was really effective at portraying superpowers as something not everyone would like. And it gets even better and worse for the characters when they realize there's something going to happen in the future, and all of them have to play a role in order to avoid a huge explosion that could end up destroying a big city. But in the end of the first season, they all, in a way, accept their role and play their part in fighting this menace. The problem is, when that happened, the show didn't know where to go. And the writers and the producer didn't have a lot of time to decide. And there becomes a moment when there's a conflict between producers and writers, and people start getting fired and all that. And it was just not meant to be. Now, you can't recreate something like that easily, and one of the main reasons people watched the show was because of Zachary Quinto's portrayal of the supervillain Sylar, which is pretty much just think about a serial killer with superpowers. And his portrayal was really, really fun, really, really, really attractive, really, really engaging, really mysterious and thought-provoking about the psychology of this character. And they are going to start with any of the strengths of the show and try to make another one. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith on it. If they were going to tell me that they're going to remake the second season, then I will watch it. John, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Now, there's a recent trend regarding TV shows, and I realized that since Arrow, since the release of the TV show Arrow, it's like we have now the TV show The Flash, we have Gotham, there's a Supergirl show in the works, there's a possible Atom spin-off in the works. We have Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we have Agent Carter, we have a series about Daredevil being developed, we have a Jessica Jones and a Luke Cage TV show coming on Netflix. We have tons of TV shows based on heroes either being on TV right now or being in production. The thing is, what changed in the mind of the producers? I mean, back in the day of Smallville, there weren't many shows about superheroes, and now we are constantly hearing news about either TV shows going to be released or in pre-production. At what point did pitching a TV show about a superhero or a comic book character became so easy, so attractive for the producers?
Well, I'm tempted to think it might have something to do with the success of the entire Marvel film franchise, and not just having a one superhero film be its own self-contained thing, but have it be a part of this entire universe. And that universe is not just movies now, but also extending into TV with Agent Carter and Agents of Shield. So I think maybe they're looking at it more as not just a one-off TV series that they might try and that it might fail, but that they could use it to build a larger brand and have it be a part of that. And because if that works out, then that makes a lot of money.
Yeah, the thing is, maybe they think, you know what? People who watch the show is going to end up watching the movies, and people who watch the movies are going to be a bit interested about the show. So in a way, everybody wins, TVs and movie producers. But here's the thing. I think that the main reason we have shows right now is because of the success of Arrow. I think DC found a way to make a TV show about superhero. With the producers and the TV companies were comfortable, and the audience went to see it, and it was successful, monetarily successful. It has pretty decent ratings, and the show keep going. And then we have in the state of Marvel, we have Agents of Shield, which is also a show that has found a way to make a TV show that is, while it's based on a comics universe, it has found a way that they doesn't have to tap constantly on famous superheroes storylines or subjects or stuff like that to make it interesting. I told you, I started watching Marvel's Agents of Shield from the first episode, then I stopped at episode 6 because I thought it was boring and stupid and not interesting. And then I heard months later a lot of good reviews about the show. And I have started watching it again. I'm right now in episode 16, and I think it's wonderful. It's really fun. It's not the greatest TV show I have seen, but it's surprisingly good. And it's a show on its own. I mean, it's really Agents of Shield. It's just a couple of characters of Shield and the type of adventures these guys will go through. And I think the fact that these two TV shows have a very specific style and they have been successful, what triggered the sudden release of greenlight of all these shows. If you see The Flash, if you see Gotham, it's hard not to see the similarities with Arrow. If you see Agent Carter, it's not hard to see the similarities with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I think that's the point. The TV producers have these two models to, it's like they have instructions on how to make a good TV show about superheroes, and now they just follow them.
Well, superheroes, comic book movies have been really popular for about 15 years now, which is actually a lot longer than I would have expected them to be popular. Because it's like I thought maybe they'd be like popular for about a decade, and then we'd find some other kind of popular movie genre. So, in a way, maybe it's kind of surprising that TV shows about comic book heroes haven't gotten popular a lot sooner.
There's a thing when I see Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., there's an aspect that I capture my attention, and that's that the special effects are pretty good for a TV show. It's back in the day, for example, of Heroes. It was really expensive to make some really simple superpowers, and when I watch Marvel Agents of Shields, you are constantly bombarded with CG images of airplanes and aircraft that looks wonderful. And I think that's a good reason. One of the reasons behind the production is that it's the costs are lower and the production has more quality on the special effects area. Now, about the stories. I think for many years, TV producers have been afraid of creating a TV show about superheroes because they think people tend to not take them seriously. And Arrow proved them wrong. They proved that maybe if we tone down the cartoony aspect of comic books, like the wearing a suit, the names, and the motivations of some characters, and bring them a little bit closer to the real world, people are going to start taking them seriously and watch the show, and that has been proved. Now, I would love to see a TV miniseries where we get to see a close to the comic book adaptation of these characters, but I don't think we're going to see them pretty soon. I think the Gotham Flash or an Arrow style of keeping grounded the superhero is going to be the standard for years to come.
Yeah, it's like trying to think of the last live action superhero movie or a superhero TV series that I really bothered watching, and first one that comes to mind is actually the original Flash TV show from I think the late '80s or early '90s.
Early '90s.
Yeah, it wasn't on for very long, but I remember loving watching that one.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, other than that, most comic book or superhero TV series are usually animated. Like I mean, even if they're really well done, like Paul Dini's Batman animated series, which is terrific. Yeah, it's like, could you take that and do it live action? Have it be that well written and do a live action version of it, would people take it more seriously?
I think a good point of comparison are the DC animated movies, because they remain the aesthetic, the color of the comic book universe, but the storylines are pretty serious and emotionally engaging. So that proves that you can make that kind of adaptation in live action. I would love to see in the future a movie that takes that style of storytelling of DC animated movies and try to make it a miniseries. And I think people can buy it. I don't know. So anyway, something else I wanted to talk about. Were you able to see the trailer for Age of Ultron, the second trailer?
Yeah, I did see the trailer for Avengers: Age of Ultron.
The second one?
Yes, the second trailer, the most recent one. Yeah.
What did you think about it?
It's really hard for me to know what a movie is going to be about based on its trailer, because trailers tend to make all movies look the same. But the first Avengers was okay. If you remember what Ian has said about it on the CU podcast, that he enjoyed it the first time he saw it, but it was just kind of forgettable after that. He didn't really want to go back to it. And I feel basically the same way about it. I enjoyed it watching it. It was entertaining, but kind of forgettable, not really substantial I think just because it survived a lot on cliches, the idea of these heroes and they don't get along, but they have to learn to get along in order to rise up against the bad guy. Um, and Joss Whedon, he's a competent filmmaker, and he writes witty dialogue. Maybe it's a little too clever for his own good sometimes, but he can make an entertaining movie.
Yeah.
I think since he's doing the second one, now that they kind of have the premise of the first one out of the way of just getting them together and being the Avengers, now that they've established that, they can do interesting things with it. So I think there's promise in the second movie.
I think that the trailer shows a bit of the trend for the movie is that you know what, they were friends, but now look, they are fighting, and Thor has Tony Stark grabbed by the neck, and Tony Stark is fighting Hulk, and everyone looks either sad or angry, and that's kind of the sell point for the TV show, how everyone is fighting each other. But there's a scene that captured my attention, and you see Hulk fighting Iron Man in a Hulkbuster suit, this huge suit made especially to fight contain the Hulk, and the Hulk has this red glow in his eyes. Some people have pointed out that this has to do with a scene where Scarlet Witch manipulates the mind of some of the characters. There's a scene released, I think, in the Comic-Con or some convention where Tony Stark is talking with Steve Rogers, Captain America, in a countryside about what happened, what Scarlet Witch made each of them see, like some sort of vision. Apparently, Scarlet Witch has this power to mess with people's minds, and she does this with all the characters, including Hulk, and this can be the source for many conflicts in the movie. At least the first event we see is Iron Man fighting Hulk. The problem is that a lot of this image has also been accused of being like dream sequences. For example, there's a moment in we hear the bad guy Ultron saying, "I'm going to rip you apart from," and we see Thor being destroyed by lightning. And some people think, you know what, maybe these are visions of Thor about what's going to happen in Ragnarok, which is the title for the third Thor movie. And I don't know if this is true or not. What I can say is that the special effects look good, and just watching the face of the Hulk losing control and feeling anger, and the subtle ways they show this just by the expression on his face, that's what makes me excited, because it's a difficult craft to do, and it can tell us so much about how fun the movie is going to be. Because when everyone can make a man fly using CG, but when you make a man fly and you care about what that man is thinking, and these special effects become emotionally relevant for the viewer, then the movie becomes much more interesting. Now, what's going to worry me is what's going to happen with Iron Man at the end of the movie. It appears to be, if Ultron is the creation of Bruce Banner and Tony Stark, and he ends up creating all this destruction, then probably the Avengers aren't going to be very fond of both of these characters.
You think this is going to be like kind of a way of writing Iron Man out of sort of the universe a little bit, so Robert Downey Jr. has kind of an out to leave the character if he wants to?
You know what? In the comics, Tony Stark is in constant conflict with the Avengers and humanity itself. He's not a very popular character for the superheroes because he is a genius. he's able to do a lot of things that some people think are dangerous and some others think aren't morally that clear. So even though he sees himself as someone who serves humanity, he's constantly seen as something you can't trust, even by the Avengers. So maybe this movie is going to end up placing Iron Man in that situation, when the Avengers are going to see him more as a threat than as an ally. So Iron Man is going to keep existing and doing his stuff and planning the future of protection of humanity from aliens and other threats, but he's going to be, in a way, expelled from the Avengers. And also, there's constant rumors saying that at the end of Age of Ultron, the Avengers as we know it are going to be disassembled. I mean, they're going to be still Avengers, but they're going to not to be going. They're not going to be Thor or Iron Man and Scarlet. Confused Scarlett Johansson with Scarlet Witch, Black Widow, and all of them. Something going to break them apart, and that's going to lead into Captain America 3: Civil War, which has been regarded as Avengers 3.8.
Yeah, you know, the second movie in a lot of series is usually kind of darker than the first one.
And better.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I remember George Lucas actually saying that the original Star Wars trilogy, all three movies were like a three-act play. You know, the first one introduces the characters, the second one puts them in a terrible situation, and the third one gets them out of it. And so I think it just kind of follows that formula. And you know, like I said, they've got the introduction to the Avengers out of the way. They got that first part, so now they can take them and trash them.
Here's the thing. I don't think usually the problem in superhero movies is how you introduce the origin story. That's always a problem in making these movies. But when you have the Avengers, the main problem was not explaining the origin, because it has been explained in all the movies. You already know who these guys are. But the main problem was, for me and for some people I heard, was that how do you give enough screen time and lines to each of these characters without seeing that anyone seems excluded or some of them seem like the protagonist? How do you share the screen space, the screen time? And that's going to be another issue now. Here's what I think. In some events in the comics, at some point previous to Civil War, Hulk goes berserk. And that's a lot saying from Hulk. Yeah, and it becomes such a big threat that since we can't kill him and we can stop him, Bruce Banner is stripped into a spaceship, and this spaceship is sent into outer space. What I think that is that since the Hulk is not quite a rich character in the Avengers movies, they might use this berserk state we see in the trailer as a reason to expel them from Earth. And that's one action that has been debated in the comics by the characters as something immoral or seems as a betrayal to Bruce Banner. And this could make a lot of sense in terms of that we rule out one character for the rest of the movie, and we make a lot of pressure. We put a lot of pressure on Tony Stark for taking that decision. And that's my guess, at least, that maybe we are not going to see a lot of Hulk in Age of Ultron after the fight with Iron Man. John?
No, I'm still here.
Sorry, I thought you left. So we have that. There's a trailer coming up with Kingsman, I think, in February. The trailer for what's the name? Fantastic Four is going to be released. And I don't know about you, but I am kind of excited about it. Not because it's going to be a movie I would like to see, but because I can't imagine how bad it's going to be. There are rumors about the director being so angry that he's destroying the fucking uh, environment. How do you call the fake scenarios for where they are filming? And he's constantly fighting with the producers in terms of budget and direction of the movie. Apparently, just the production is a mess. Now, bad superhero movies are very special. We have movies like Catwoman, which are unrecognizable. We have movies like Elektra, which are pretty boring. We have movies like Daredevil, which are inexplicable. And there's always, it's really hard to ruin a superhero movie. I'm really curious about what we're going to see in the trailer for Fantastic Four, because Fantastic Four is a movie that requires a lot of money in terms of special effects, and apparently they have money. The thing is, I don't think they have the talent or the will to make a good movie. So that's the thing. I am really curious about how this piece of crap is going to look.
Yeah, it does sort of feel like they're using the license for Fantastic Four just for the sake of using it, and they didn't really have any inspiration behind it or any good ideas.
See, here's the thing. What I see is, it's like, imagine if Marvel and Sony are brothers, and Marvel is the stronger brother and always beat up the kid brother, and Sony now is in possession of Fantastic Four, which is like a toy, the favorite toy for from Marvel, and it's now like torturing it and destroying the front of his brother to just to piss them off. Yes, so I have alliances to this, and I'm going to make it a crap. It's like they want to. I don't know. Why would you do that? Why would you have something that can make you money and make it crap? It's about this conflict about Marvel, for example, not putting a lot of effort in coming up with good, not pushing too much his comics, his Fantastic Four comics, just so they don't publicize Sony's movies. Something like that. I don't know. Anyway. So, before we finish, John, is there any subject you would like to talk about? Something about the weeks, something new, something that is going to happen, maybe in the future?
No, I think we got it covered.
Yeah, we got it covered. So, anyway, thank you for being here. It was great to hear about all this Nintendo news, because most of those games and franchises I'm not familiar with. So anyway, thank you for bearing with me with my really poor English, which I thought it was going to get better with each session, but it's getting worse actually. Thanks for being here. It was great, and I'll see you guys next week.
All right, see ya.
Bye.